My name is Laney Whitcanack, and I'm the CEO, the proud CEO of Coro, Northern California. And it is a total honor to be in front of you here today and welcoming all of you to our 22nd annual leadership luncheon. Since this luncheon is about leadership and it's about public affairs, I want to start with a question, and that is, how many of you have seen or have tickets to Hamilton? Raise your hand, raise it high. Okay, so I just want to say that you are cool for two reasons. You have the two hottest tickets in town, Hamilton and the Coro Leadership Luncheon. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But no, in all seriousness, I think the story of Hamilton is really relevant to thinking about the work of Coro. As most of you likely know, Hamilton is the story of two men in a long-standing feud, and they got stuck in a cycle of disagreement, right? And the only way that they knew to resolve their differences was with a duel. And the result was that one of them lived and one of them died. And, my kids, and I bet many of you with kids here, your kids have been listening to the soundtrack like nonstop, right? It's like a loop in the car, it's a loop at your house. And, listening to the soundtrack from Hamilton has got me thinking a lot about this idea of what the core of our democracy might have looked like if Burr and Hamilton had actually been able to work through their issues. Have you ever thought about that? Right? What might have been possible if they had had the leadership skills and they had had the discipline, right, to actually work out their differences more effectively? I think it's a really interesting question to think about, right? And at Coro, we unabashedly believe that in order to realize the great power and the incredible potential, right, the great power and the incredible potential of our nation and of our democracy, we need more people who can roll up their sleeves and work across differences. Is anyone else with me on that? Just as we might have missed out on opportunities to make our new country stronger because Burr and Hamilton couldn't work out their issues, today I wonder what innovative and creative solutions for the common good will never see the light of day, because so often our political parties end up essentially in a legislative duel. Honestly, the reason I work at Coro and the reason why I am so fired up about the work that we get to do here is because I want a world with fewer duels to slow us down and with more collaboration to propel us forward. Right? But let's think about this a little bit. So how could Burr and Hamilton actually have benefited from Coro training? Well, I want to talk a little bit about, they could have. I want to talk a little bit about Coro's founding. So Coro was actually founded here in San Francisco by two Republicans and organized labor. Okay, in the early 40s, Donald Fletcher and Van Dyne Dodge of Dodge & Cox, one of our generous sponsors, believed that our democratic system of government needed a different kind of emerging leaders. Witnessing the rise of Hitler and totalitarian regimes, they realized that without strong civic leadership, our democracy would be at risk. And so the first program of Coro launched in the fall of 1946, and you all met Colonel Ralph a little bit earlier, and his picture is actually right up here. That's from the class of 1947 of Coro. But I want to say what they wanted to do, right, was they wanted to equip a new generation with a different kind of knowledge and understanding, and not the kind of knowledge that you get from a book, right? Dodge and Fletcher developed a new training model, and it was based on medical school. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the concept of medical rotations, right, that medical students go through. And it's all based on this idea that, just as you can't heal the body without understanding, a bit about how it works in a whole, they believed that you couldn't lead, whether it be leading a business or a nonprofit or a labor union or government agency, without having the exposure to people and organizations across sectors. right? So instead of surgery and oncology and pediatrics, they chose labor unions, they chose government and political campaigns and businesses. Coro participants learn by doing, and today, right now, our programs have participants doing those exact same rotations. And even in our part-time programs, our participants spend time with people who work in those different environments. But beyond the importance of cross-sector knowledge, there are two other key components of our training, right? One of them is skills. And at Coro, we focus on these critical skills that so often are kind of glossed over, but they're really essential for effective leadership. Asking good questions, listening for meaning, not just what you want to hear, inspiring people to do their best work, even working on things like how to effectively run meetings and projects is basically all of the things that you wished that your worst coworker did, or your 6-year-old did, or all elected officials. Present company totally excluded from that, right? But it's the kind of training, right, that maybe would have set up Burr and Hamilton for a partnership to advance the new nation. And these skills really don't come naturally to us, right? It's a struggle. It's a struggle. But developing them is one of our strongest hopes. And so in our programs, learning and practicing these skills is part of our training. And I'll tell you and give you a quick example of what that looks like. So tonight, our current class of Coro fellows, so if you're a current fellow, can you raise your hand? Yes, okay, so for this particular program, there are 12 of these folks, and they got an assignment. Their assignment was to host dinners to spark civil discourse. And so what they're doing tonight and tomorrow night is they're hosting parties that bring together people of divergent political views, right? And the goals of these events are very simple. One is to gain empathy for people with different views and values. The second is to gain the respect of people with different views and values. And the third is to have the actual experience, right, of organizing and hosting an event where people can listen and learn in a civil conversation. So it's not just thinking about doing this, right? It's actually doing it. It's actually practicing that. And that is how we build leadership in our Coro programs. But even beyond the knowledge and the skills that I talked about, there's a third leg of the stool for leadership at Coro, and that's really the connective tissue of leadership. That's the network. So even in this room, I think we got a lot of Coro networking going on, right? When you leave here today, we hope that your network is a little bit bigger than when you walked in the door. That you've met or traded a business card with someone that you didn't already know, maybe with a different sector or from a different sector with a different title, maybe someone who usually sits across the table from you in a negotiation. You can be sure that when you're part of Coro, you're going to always meet or interact with someone doing something that you probably didn't even know existed. And then you take that knowledge into the world and you grow our web of connections and activities, and that's how Coro works. Our graduates are constantly cultivating these relationships and these connections across differences. No one is boring to a Coro graduate. Everyone is an opportunity to learn and understand more. And the Coro of today creates programs that build skills and knowledge and networks together beyond just the walls of our training room, but with organizations and partners across the state. The Coro of today brings our training to everyone from high school students to recent college graduates to farm workers to mid-career professionals and even retirees. Hundreds of people every year. In fact, seriously, every person in this room could be in some kind of a Coro program now. That's how we've grown and expanded our training. And in a shameless plug, if your union or your business or your nonprofit is looking to, or government agency is looking to increase your leadership capacity, let us know, because we'd love to help you with that. But we're also getting great results, right, from the growth that we're having. We recently launched a women's leadership program in partnership with the UC system. And a third of the graduates of that program got promotions or accessed new opportunities within a few months of graduating. And they give their Coro training the credit for that advancement. And what we know is that regardless of context, participants in our programs leave, and this is one of the most important things I want you all to really think about. They leave our programs with a sense of urgency and also with a sense of agency. a sense of urgency and a sense of agency to move themselves and their communities and our organizations forward. As one of our alums described it, Coro training turned my world from black and white to Technicolor.